lesson 3 and topic 1, which is continuity at a point. So example 1. Consider the graph below. This is the graph sa f of x equals to 3x minus 1. Ano yung graph? Ang question is the function continuous at x equals to 1? So let's investigate. So ang kaning x equals to 1 nga, sana to? At x equals to 1, ara, ang kana nga kuan, we consider x equals to 1 is kani nga, let's say, di ba, mauning x equals to 1, kani nga linya, kani, imaginary line nga na dire, kana, x equals to 1. So, ato ang question. If we sketch daw this graph, ma-sketch ba ni mo ning graph, sorry, 2 naman lagi ning, 1 pa day, sorry, balik ka sa 1. So, kani ang sa 1. Ang question, ana, is can you sketch this graph and will you pass kani nga vertical line na x equals to 1? Will you pass this line without lifting your writing material? So, mao na ang continuity. Pag once dili ma-write nimo, ma-sketch nimo ang graph without lifting your writing material on this muagi siya ani nga linya na wala ka nag-lift sa imong writing material, then that graph is continuous at that x equals to 1. So since nakaya na to nga ma-sketch siya without lifting, then this function is continuous at x equals to 1. So, ingana ang continuity. An example sa di po siya continuity, di po siya continuous, di po siya continuity. Sige. Question, is this is the graph of this function. Ano ang kanya? So, given a graph na, question is this function continuous at x equals to 1? So, again, we consider this line, imaginary line there as x equals to 1. So, question again, can you draw or can you sketch the graph without lifting? Di ba, pag abot diri nga part sa kanang naailingin na unshaded, di ba you need to lift your writing material para mo continue. Kay dili man nini pwede agyan kay unshaded man eh. So, since na-lift nimo ang imuhang writing material, therefore, this function is not continuous at x equals to 1. So, ingato ang dili continuous, ang katong example 1 pod ang continuous. So, hopefully na kuha na ang concept sa continuity. Next, another example. What about this one? This is the graph of h of x equals to 1 over x. Given a graph, determine if the function is continuous at x equals to 0. So again, you try to drop a vertical line, imaginary vertical line sa x equals to 0. Naman yung x equals to 0 dali. So x equals to 0, di ba kana? So question, can you sketch daw? So kung i-sketch nato ni, padulong diha, asymptotic man ni diri. Ang question, diri okay. Okay siya dire. Ang question, unsa na to pag-draw sa pikas na pod without lifting our writing material. So we need to lift para maka-sketch na pod ka dire. So since na kailangan na to i-lift atong kuan at this point, then therefore this function is not continuous. So nga to ang concept sa that's another example sa dili siya continuous na function. Kanina po. Kanina, x at x equals to 0. Next, what about same function, h of x as equals to 1 over x, but ang question is it continuous at x equals to 2? Kanina, x equals to 0 man. This time, what about at x equals to 2? Di ba we have learned kanina na di siya dili siya continuous. Is this function continuous? Not. No, di ba? This is not continuous at x equals to 0. But another question, what about at x equals to 2? So this time, lahi na nga x equals to 2 naman. So lahi na nga vertical line ato ang i-consider. Kanina pod. Kaning nga line. Kay mao man nga line ang x equals to 2. So, diara atong i-focus. Can you sketch daw the graph without lifting? Sa diri nga part ba, can you sketch the graph without lifting your writing material? And since we can sketch it, so tanawon nimo, pwede ra man ka diretso ra, wala man ka nag-lift sa imong hand, then we can say that this is a function of a continuous function at x equals to 0. Ganina, dili siya continuous. Dili siya continuous at x equals to 0. Pero at x equals to 2, sa diri nga part, continuous siya. So, depende kung asa nga x equals to something nimo. Kung continuous siya. Sa isa ka function, pwede siya continuous at a certain point. Pwede po siya continuous at another point na po. So, nga na ang pasabot. So, depende sa x equals to what point nimo. So, that is kung given si graph. What about walay graph? So, possible answer ninyo, i-graph na ko, sir. And I think mo agree mo nga okay lang kung namoy graphing na application. So, dali ra siya. What if wala? And kabalo baya ta nga graphing is dili pud ingana ka dali buhaton. Medyo puti pud baya siya. So, instead of graphing, you can determine continuity algebraically. And these are the three conditions na kailangan ninyo i-satisfy to determine that given function is continuous at x equals to a certain number c. So these are the conditions. A function f of x is said to be continuous at x equals to c if the following three conditions are satisfied. First, f of c exists. What does it mean? When you say f of c exists, di ba kung f of c, unsa gani pagbuhat na ni, di ba by substitution? Kung by substitution nimo, by directly substituting c sa imong function, then naa kay value nga makuha, meaning value exists, na ay value, then f of c exists. When can you say that f of c does not exist? Pag once undefined ang imong pag substitution gani nimo mo undefined, then you can say that f of c does not exist. Aside from that, pag once katuganing ganina, katong even ang radicand tapos negative dire, so undefined man na. So pag once undefined siya sa real number system, then ang conclusion ana is f of c does not exist. So mo nang condition kana lang bantayanan kung ma-undefined gani, di ba duha man atong ma-undefined siya katong number over 0 and kani. So these are the two conditions nga bantayanan. So, pag ingani, undefined siya. Kung undefined siya, therefore, ang f of c does not exist. So, f of c does not exist. So, wala na siya na-satisfy. Next, second condition nga dapat i-satisfy is the limit of f of x as x approaches to c exists. Again, same gyapon. When can you say that the limit of f of x as x approaches to c exists? When natay value nga ma-solve in solving for the limit. Then how will you solve for the limit? Naman na, lesson 1 and 2. So, it's either mag-table of values ka or magamit kang limit theorem. Then, kung nakay value makuha, then the limit of f of x as x approaches to c exists. Kanos asya dili mag-exist pag kani gihapon. Kung pag-solve nimo, undefined siya, then the limit of f of x as x approaches to c does not exist. Or pag table of values nimo, does not exist gani, then therefore the limit does not exist. That's the second condition. The third condition, dapat f of c must be equal to the limit of f of x as x approaches to c. So dapat, di ba, naka limit of f of c exists, so nakay number ani. Kanipod, nag-exist man po ni, meaning na po ni number. Ang third condition, dapat equal sila. So, those are the three conditions na dapat nimo i-satisfy so that you can conclude that the given function is continuous. Then, in other words, manggod, if at least one of these conditions is not met, f of x, or the given function is said to be discontinuous at x equals to c. So, kung graph, dali lang. May balaan man dahil na ito kung graph, no? Kay meaning, dili siya continuous di nga part. Then, discontinuous siya. Continuous siya. Ma-sketch na ko ang graph without lifting my writing material. Then, that's continuous. Pero, kung wala siya graph, kani atong gamiton. So, let's try to have some examples para ma-practice on saan to pagkuan. Parehaan na. We have here, determine if f of x equals x cubed plus x squared minus 2 is continuous or not at x equals to 1. So, since wala siya graph, two ways imong pwede buhaton. It's either mag-graph ka or katong three conditions. But kung graphing manggod, medyo kuti. Okay lang kung naatay application. But kasagaran manggod, pag-exam, wala man ginay app. Para karon raman siguro ta nagka-luxury nga gamit og technology while taking exam, kumbaga. So, what if wala? So, ang buhaton nimo, again, first condition, check kung naa siya. Ang f of c nimo exists. So, meaning f of 1. I-solve nimo si f of 1. So, f of 1, as about substitute tanan x dire of 1. So, 1 cube plus 1 squared minus 2. And this is 1 cube is 1 plus 1 squared is another 1 minus 2. And we have 1 plus 1 is 2 minus 1. Minus 2 I mean, this is 0. Please, if ever na ay mamali sa akong pag-solve, pakibadlong ko. Kay I'm just human. Mamali pa ba ito sa akin? So sige. So far, wala man siguro, no? Hello, napaba ko ikastorya?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige, padayon ta. So we have here, that's the first condition. Since natay nakuha nga value nga dili siya undefined, therefore we can say that limit, f of c exists. Namatay value nga nakuha. Ikaduha. So aside sa f of c, kailangan na to isolve si f of x as x approaches to 1. Kaya ang c na to is 1 man. So, recall na to karon kung unsaon pag-determine sa limit. Meaning limit ni x cubed plus x squared minus 2 as x approaches to 1. How will you solve this one? There are many ways. It's either you make table of values, medyo bugat man. It's either you maggamit ka graph, kutipod. But take note, this given is a polynomial function. We have a limit theorem na pag once polynomial function, pwede rata magamit sa direct substitution. So meaning, pwede rata yun nato gamiton na si x, kaning 1 dere, i-substitute lang nato kay x. So same yapon, 1 cube plus 1 squared minus 2, which we already solved na 0 ni siya. So since again natay nakuha nga value nga dili undefined, therefore, the limit of f of x as x approaches to 1 exists. In ikatulo, ang question na karon, ang f of 1 is 0, which is also 0 man pod si limit ni f of x as x approaches to 1. So, therefore, ang three conditions are satisfied. Then, therefore, we can conclude, therefore, f of x is continuous at x equals to 1. So continuous siya at x equals to 1. You can prove that one, or you can verify that one using sa graph. Using graphing sa inyong graphing calculator ba or graphing na application, then tanawon ninyo at x equals to 1, continuous good siya. Dili siya no need nimo i-lift ang imuhang writing material at x equals to 1. Tuloy-tuloy good siya. So nga na. So question so far. May pangutana? Hello?
Wala, sir.
Wala. Sige, padayon ta. Another example. So we have here, determine if this given function is continuous or not at x equals to 0. So again, since wala tayo given graph, so it is advisable na maggamit atong three conditions. So the first condition is you solve for f of c, where your c nato there is 0. So again, nato'y question sa kuha, pwede ba sir, pwede ba kung mag-factoring daan pag mag-solve ko og f of c? No. Pag mag-f of c yun ang imong solbon, direct substitution din ka. Sa limit lang tong applicable si factoring. So, kani, f of c, you need to substitute yun si 0. 0 squared minus 0, asa nigikan, dari na ito nag-substitute ha, sa given. Minus 2, tapos 0 minus 2. And we have negative 2 na ni sa taas over negative 2. Then, this is positive 1. So therefore, naman tayo number nga nakuha, dili man siya dili man undefined, so therefore f of 0 exists. Ikaduha, we need to solve for the limit of katong x squared minus x minus 2 over x minus 2 as x approaches to 0. And solving for limit, you may use table of values, graphing, but since this is a rational function, then we can try substitution. And by substitution, this becomes 0 squared minus 0 minus 2 over 0 minus 2, which is 1 gyapon. So meaning nag-exist gyapon si limit. And finally, on the third condition, f of 0 is equals to 1, which is also equivalent to the limit of f of x as x approaches to 0. Since equal si f of 0 o limit of f of x as x approaches to 0, therefore, ang f of x is continuous at x equals to 0. So that's another example sa continuous function. What about this one? Same given function, ganina sa number 6, but the question is, this time at x equals to 2 na po. So ganina, we have concluded that f of x is continuous at x equals to 0. The question is, what if at x equals to 2? So we try the process. First condition, we will determine if the f of 0 ba exists. So by substitution, this is 0 squared. No, sorry. We're now asked to solve, determine at x equals to 2 di. So f of 2 ni dapat. So this becomes 2 squared minus 2 over 2 minus 2. Sa taas, we have 4 minus 2 over 2 minus 2 is 0. So since naatay 0 sa denominator, 4 minus, di ba, 0 over 0? Tama? 0 over 0. So meaning, indeterminate siya. So kung indeterminate siya, kailangan pa nato, dili din yung kailangan ng factoring. So, 0 over 0, sa f of z pa lang, meaning, pwede na ka mo conclude nga does not exist. Ang ganangan, sir, di ba indeterminate form na nga 0 over 0? Ang point ani kung f of c ang kailangan, f of c ang imong question, Basta mo zero na si denominator, no need na nato ni kailangan actually sa taas. Kung mo zero na si denominator, pwede na ka musulti nga f of c does not exist. Pero kung limit ang istoryahan tapos kani ang nilabas, dito ka pwede mag-apply of factoring. Again ha, klarohon na to na ha. Ang factoring nimo is applicable only for limit. Pero ang sa f of c, pag direct substitution nimo mo zero gani si denominator, wala na kay pakialam sa taas, you can directly conclude that f of 2 does not exist. So sa first condition pa lang, nag-fail na. Ang question, sir, i-check pa ba na ko si second condition o third condition? Dili na necessary. Since again, ang sulti dito ganina na dapat ang tulo masatisfy. Since isa pa lang wala na nasatisfy, pwede na ka mo conclude diretso nga f of x is not continuous at x equals to 2. Continuous siya at x equals to 0, ganina. Pero at x equals to 2, dili siya continuous. You can verify that one using, again, sa graph ninyo, sa graphing, na maputol yun. I mean, di yun nimo ma-sketch siya at x equals to 2. So yun. So ang bottom line lang ani, pag naay isa, sa first condition pa lang, does not exist na, wala na wala na ni satisfy, then pwede na ka mo stop. Tingana lang. So for number 7, kani. Determine this function if this function is continuous or not at x equals to 4. Kani is a piecewise function. So medyo tricky ni gamay. So again, since wala tay graph, then pumuhaton is first condition. Let's try to solve for f of c. Kung naatay f of 4, 4 man na to si c. F of 4, kung naatay makuha nga value, kung dili siya undefined. Okay. F of 4. So, since piecewise function diha, daghan taog, duha ka buok atong function, kani o kana. Ang question karon asa ta mag-substitute. Since ang x nimo is exactly equal to 4, so diri ta sa baba, kay diri man siya na igo nga condition, dili ka pwede sa taas, kay ang condition sa taas, if x is less than 4. Since x nato is exactly equal to 4, so diri ta sa baba mag-substitute. So ang gamito nato nga function is kanang x minus 4, so 4 minus 4 squared. Again, anong sa baba? Because ang value nato is 4 and diri na belong si condition sa 4. If x is greater than or equal to 4, diri daw ang gamiton. So 4 minus 4 plus 3. And we have 4 minus 4 is 0 squared. 0 squared plus 3. Tapos 0 squared is 0 plus 3. That's 3. So therefore, we have a value. Dili siya undefined. Therefore, f of 4 exists. What about, so kailangan nato mo proceed sa second condition. Checking second condition, limit of f of x as x approaches to 4. Okay, this time is piecewise function. Kung saan gani nato pag-determine sa limit sa piecewise function. So recall na pag-limit sa piecewise function, kailangan nato kuhaon ang limit, ang left limit o right limit sa. So we have to solve for the limit of f of x as x approaches to 4 una from the left. Okay. So meaning from the left of 4. So unsa nga asa ta mag-substitute karon? Left of 4 man. So diri ta mag-substitute sa taas. Nganong sa taas man, sir? Kay 4 from the left man ta. When you say 4 from the left, nasa left ni 4. Ang mga numbers nga nasa left ni 4 is less than 4. So diha ta mag-substitute. Kay x plus 1. So mao na kailangan 4 plus 1 ta diri. And ang limit from the left niya is 5. Then kailangan po nato kuhaon si limit of f of x as x approaches to 4 from the right. So again, 4 from the right. So meaning nasa right ni 4. So asa ta mag-substitute, sa taas or sa baba? Since naaman ta ang numbers nga greater than kani nga condition naman sa taas, ang numbers nga nasa right ni 4 is nabilong ani nga condition. Kaning x is greater than or equal to 4. So diri ta mag-substitute para sa left limit na to. X minus 4, 4 minus 4, quantity squared plus 3, which is mauning 3. Na-solve na nato na. Same lang na ani. Yeah. So 3. So what can you say karon? Ang limit from the left is 5. Ang limit from the right is 3. So what can you conclude sa limit of f of x as x approaches to 4? Since dili sila pareha, then we can conclude that the limit does not exist. So meaning, wala tayong nakuha nga value. So meaning, ang second condition fails. Wala na satisfy sa second condition. Question, kailangan pa ba kumonto sa third condition? No need na. Since ang second condition is not satisfied, therefore, you can now conclude that this function, conclusion dari na lang, therefore, f of x is not continuous at x equals to 4. So, ingana, mag-determine pag piecewise function. So, bantayanan sa piecewise function kay kailangan nimo magkuhag duha pod ka limit, right limit o left limit. So, hopefully, nakuha ang process. And that's all.